Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Journey to Harmony. I'm your host, Richard Harmon. On this channel, we talk about the process of building wealth and different career opportunities, as well as how these things integrate to help us become the person we were supposed to be. Today, we have a special guest on our show. We have our friend, Benjamin Neal here. Benjamin is a master's degree holder. He is a current high school football coach, and he's a lover of all things history, as well as economics. So we want to welcome Ben. Ben, can you say a few words to the people?
Richard, it's really good to see you, man. You look good. It's good to be back. I love talking to you. Uh, nothing too enlightening to say right now. I'm just looking forward to a good discussion.
Definitely. I feel like this conversation will be a bit all over the place, but we'll go ahead and pick up where we left off with. So before I started recording, we're talking to Ben just a little bit about his day-to-day life and his work. And Ben was telling us just a bit about the lack of shortage in terms of tradespeople. So Ben, if you can go ahead and just explain a little bit about the situation you're talking about a daily cable puller.
Yeah. So people, when we talk about the trades, we always talk about like electricians or plumbers, and those are great. Every single building in America that has internet will need hardwired data cable. Every building in America. If you have an access point or a router in a Walmart, a Target, a Dollar Tree, a Dollar General, they're all connected with data cable. If you need to collect data from, future EVs, what our kilowatt hours are going to be, our output, our input, number of people, you got to have it connected to the internet. And it's not going to be able to do that via Wi-Fi. You have to hardwire it. You have to run data cable to this thing. And there are people that get certified in this for next to nothing. It's really cheap to get certified. It's really easy to get certified. And we just don't tell our kids about it. It's a money pit. It's just nothing but pure green. And you just pull Cat 6. We've all done it from like our router to a machine or something in our own house. That's the job. So it's not like it's hard.
Wow.
And we're just telling kids, we're just not telling kids about this and just leaving, $1,000 of work for 2 hours on the table.
Yeah. So can you tell me about that example you spoke about recently that you were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I work with a whole pile of guys from different vendors. But Paul in particular, he's my best one. Mm-hmm. And we had an emergency, and we needed him to go out to a site and get these registers right and get data running to it because Dollar Tree needs that because they need to make money. So we paid Paul $1,100 for an hour and a half of work to pull data cable.
$1,100 for an hour and a half worth of work.
He might not have broke a sweat, Richard. He might have broke a sweat. I'm serious. It's such an easy job. Wow. Just don't tell anybody about it.
It shocks me of how many different things are out there. I've learned about so many different career opportunities that it's just like, you do what? I started just like walking through the streets, or I was in the airport recently. I just asked people, I'm like, hey, what do you do? I'm planning on possibly even turning the camera on and just like asking people just like, hey, what do you do? How do you make, like, I'm always interested in knowing different things. And there is so many different careers out there that make money that you never would have thought of. I think a few years ago, people started saying, hey, I get paid, $5,000 a month to play video games for different vendors. Like it's a strange thing,
It's a different world. And like you said, turn the camera on, make content about something. I mean, somebody's interested in what you have to say. There's a spot for that on the internet. Anywhere you go on the internet, there's a spot for that. So turn the camera on too.
Yeah. So to talk about what we wanted to speak about today, the focus here is the fall of empires, and that this just got me started as I was watching the Threads release. And everyone was rushing over the Threads. They're like, hey, I need to sign up. And then all of a sudden, one person reached out and sent out a tweet, and that thing went viral. They're like, hey, I created Threads and I didn't want it. I deleted it and deleted my Instagram. And it's built into the code that it's basically saying that you have to sign up and stay committed to Threads. So I wanted to talk about this in reference to different centuries, different empires in the past that have fallen and what that looked like. So with you being a big fan of history and you having a great knowledge base about this, I just wanted to talk to you a bit about that and to see what your thoughts are in terms of where America is and all these different things. So we can begin however you want to.
Oh man, I actually watched a great video from this guy named Kraut. Kraut. Give him a watch.
Mhm.
He makes some really interesting stuff. Watched it last night. And it was a Chinese view of Western imperialism and Western empires. And the United States and Europe and China, who are the three, the East, are
Mhm.
three very separate entities now, right?
Yeah.
But Europe, that's where the real influence is as far
Yeah.
as empires goes,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
The Chinese claim, this is really, I love this. The Chinese guy claims that the European Union is just another attempt at 1919 to 1939 European nationalism on a cooperative scale
Hmm.
instead of a violent scale.
Hmm.
And what's inevitably going to happen is instead of the West and the East, there's going to be this third pole, if you want to call it that, that is now the European Union.
Hmm.
The only thing stopping Ukrainian, and this is how imperialism, when you get to imperialism, right? The
Hmm.
only thing stopping Ukrainian membership is France wants to sell their wheat to the EU.
Really?
That's the only thing stopping it, is France wants to sell their wheat to the EU instead of Ukraine selling their wheat. So it's another version of, projecting your power on your neighbors
Yeah.
for your own gain. It's
Yeah.
just modern imperialism. So
Uh,
so we're at a time, man, where you can't really look back on history and see this
mhm.
happening. We've never seen a cooperative Europe. It's always
Yeah.
been the Roman Empire, and they fought forever.
Mhm.
Uh, and this Chinese guy also claimed that the fall of the Roman Empire was the worst thing that ever happened to Europe. But that's a that's a whole other
Yeah.
can of worms.
Definitely. What is it that you saw? So you said like they're currently facing an issue with the EU, and it's like you said like it's a demonstration of power. I think overall it's just about yeah. So can you imagine the Ukrainians are currently fighting the Russians, and if Ukraine is part of the EU, Russia's no longer fighting just Ukraine, but they're fighting Europe and the West.
Mhm.
And France knows this, and they're holding it up because they want to sell wheat. That
They want to
that's
sell wheat.
that's a
That's
pretty
exactly why.
wild. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Like you said, like it's been interesting just learning just about history and about how different empires have gone about. Whether it's the Roman Empire, it's the Ottoman Empire. There's always a rise and a fall, and I think America has gone through their rise, and it feels like it's not yet the overall collapse, but it's the meteoric rise has plateaued. It feels like, and it's kind
Mhm.
of like it's like of what's going on at this particular time in this nation.
I think it's really unfair to the United States to say that we have plateaued
Hmm.
from 19 about 51. It
Hmm.
was a little rough after World War II.
Yeah.
Korea started happening.
Yeah.
There's still economy is still kind of to now. We have seen the greatest rise in the human and in the nation,
Hmm.
like the nation, like a nation state. What I
Yeah.
mean, not just this nation,
Uh,
that the world has ever seen.
yeah.
The Roman Empire can't touch it.
Hmm.
The Mongols can't touch it. The
Hmm.
Carolingians can't touch it.
Yeah.
Nobody can touch what the United States is.
Hmm.
And I think that there is this, feeling that the United States is weaker because projection of power among our neighbors. But I think that the world is just becoming more global.
Yeah.
I think that's
Hmm.
really what it is. I think it's just
Yeah.
access to information and
Hmm.
able to communicate. We're a
Definitely.
thousand miles away from each other. We just talk to each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Like you said, like I think you're right about that. It's less about the it's not sinking. It's there's a greater market share for other nations, and
Hmm.
it's I think China has as a result they've kind of faltered. I think they pulled and grasped that power too quickly. If they had waited another 10 years, something like that, maybe they would have been able to accelerate. But so majority of businesses are doing their best to pull out of China right now. They're trying their best to walk that tightrope, knowing that Xi is a strong armed particular leader, and they're trying their best to get out of it. But I think most China's going to start uh, rescinding pretty quickly here. I think in the next few years, as nations move away from them.
Yeah. So China's very old. They're old. They have a very old population. They
Mhm.
don't have a ton of young people. They
Yeah.
will see a huge decline of population.
Mhm.
Uh, but the way they've been able to exercise power, not necessarily militarily, the
Mhm.
way that nations compared to empires project their power is completely different. Nations, we used to have the thought in like the early 1930s, 40s. France still kind of does it,
Mhm.
where it was imperialism and you projected your power via your military and having African colonies or Southeast Asian colonies,
Mhm.
and that's just flat out changed. Now we project about power via information and trade,
Yeah.
and China is all over that. But it's also really weird for China because that's not what they do.
Yeah.
They are perpetually the Middle Kingdom. I mean, they're perpetually the isolationist. Don't get involved in foreign affairs.
Mhm.
All just worry about China until communism happened, and
Yeah.
now they're very uh, they're kind of imperialist.
Yeah.
Communism is just another form of imperialism, but
Definitely.
that's also dying
Yeah.
with the wayside whenever it comes to
Yeah.
projecting your power. You can't just dominate your neighbors anymore. As Russia, they've tried forever.
Yeah, it's
Can't do it.
interesting. It's interesting what has happened over the last 2 years, right? Like, 2 years ago, I think China was in such a great space. So was Russia. Russia was seen as like this. I think everyone always knew Russia was like a tiger in the front, and they had an empty stage in the back. You know, where there was mostly
Oh, paper
nothing.
tiger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And now the attack on Ukraine has kind of revealed to the whole world. You're like, oh, you guys, you know what I mean? Like, you guys can't handle little Ukraine. Like, you guys really don't have much of a chance. Um, the whole thing recently with Prigozhin, he's attempted to
Well,
overtake. That was that was a bit
that was
wild, but
interesting news, at least.
yeah, definitely. And it's interesting just seeing just on a national scale, Putin is really losing his overall grasp and his hold as he's telling. What happens is, in a war, you need the nation to be behind you because they're the ones who want to provide their children for war, and they have to believe in the cause that they're fighting for. And at this point right now, it's seeming more and more that the people of Russia just see Putin as doing this as um, uh, a career grasp, something to boost his ego that he was able to reunite Russia. So as a result, you're getting a lot of riots and different protests in the street of people not wanting to pursue this.
This is really nothing new with Putin, though.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you talk about, he invaded Georgia, he invaded Chechnya, he's been in Dagestan,
Mm-hmm.
he's invaded. I mean, he has tried to exercise his authority over Eastern Europe via Russian political strategies that have been tried, tested throughout the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Ukraine is just the one during the age of social media,
Yeah.
and the ability for Russians even
Mm-hmm.
in their oppressive country to access the information via Telegram. That
Mm-hmm.
invest stock in that company. Buy Telegram stock. It's the new WhatsApp. It is WhatsApp for war in Eastern Europe. They love Telegram.
Thank you for
So
that information.
yeah. Telegram is exploding.
Yeah.
Uh, the that is it's just they have the information now. The
Mm-hmm.
Russian people know, but I don't know if like there's going to be a coup and Vladimir Putin has lost all power. I think that they'll
Yeah.
find a way via state-run media and restricted media intake. Not every Russian is savvy enough to be on Telegram.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be that Putin himself will be fine.
Definitely.
It's
Yeah.
just a feeling I have. Yeah.
Definitely. And also with China, I think that the I think it all started kind of with Hong Kong and and I mean, those
Mm-hmm.
taking Hong Kong was kind of like a bridge you don't go back on. Yeah, once they took Hong Kong, it was every other nation in the area, every other like island or smaller nation in the area realized, okay, the war has begun for the most part, and you've seen them flying planes over Taiwan and different things like that. They're going for an overall grasp. They have spent the last decade really getting their hands and their roots in Africa. So they own ports of African nations. Like they've built
Oh yeah.
infrastructure and gave them loans in ways that they know the African people can't pay back. and as they default on the loans, then China decides that they own those particular properties. So their airports, their imports, and the politicians are there. They're giving away these things for next to nothing. So when someone offers you $100,000 and you sign away the right to a nation's oil reserve, like it's really crazy.
Yeah, you see. Oh, this is a really interesting topic. I'm glad you mentioned Africa, dude. So Africa is boom. I mean, Africa is about to really
Yeah.
launch itself into the modern
Hmm.
world on a grand scale. There,
Hmm.
uh, China has done a really, I'll call it a good job. I don't like that they've done it, but they've done a good job of not allowing the European Union to happen in Africa.
Hmm.
The worst thing that could happen to Chinese trade interests in
Hmm.
Africa is for the African Union, if you want to call it
Hmm.
that, right?
Yeah.
If they modeled themselves after Europe,
Yeah.
that would be an incredible trade partner for Europe.
Yeah.
Energy, resources,
Yeah.
food back and forth. That would be a
Hmm.
great trade partner.
Yeah.
But China has done so well to buy all their ports and oil, minerals, and land.
Yeah.
It won't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild because, like I said, my family's from Liberia, West Africa, and if you buy something here, you have to pay to have it freed at the port, in those particular nations. Like they've done this in Africa and in South America as well. So that they understand that their land is too much for the population. So they're basically importing their food from other places. They've learned from the West in terms of imperialism.
And quick little side note, I had beef from, oh man, Southwest Africa, Mozambique.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, they just have the best beef I've ever had in my life. Mozambique beef. It's fantastic. But what was your question again, Richard? I was just thinking about Mozambique beef. You had me in the realm.
Yeah, but I guess my question right now is, how do you see this playing out? Because when the war started in Ukraine, I was shocked by how many different nations were backing Putin. A lot of people around the world are upset with the West, with the way that they have done things. So what happens is my enemy's enemy is my friend. So as people are pushing away from the way that the West doing things, from the different policies they're looking to implement on people. I think I think the vice president, I think, went to one of the Eastern African nations, and they're like, "Hey, you guys should, push more of LGBTQ," and they were like, "No, this is not what we do here in this particular
Yeah.
nation." Yeah, so it's the policies that is in Africa, the natural community is more aligned with the East than it is with the West, overall.
Something the West is starting to realize, and it's good for the world as a whole, is not everywhere is Europe, not everywhere is the United States. I
Mhm.
mean, if you look at Europe, the United States, very different. But if you look at, Ukraine is a very different place. East Africa is a very different place.
Yeah.
And we cannot keep just projecting our power
Mhm.
via social stuff in our military. It has to
Yeah.
be with fair trade agreements and
Mhm.
compromise. That's
Mhm.
why the European Union does so well. They have
Yeah.
compromise.
Yeah.
Germany has more fiscal responsibility. France grows the wheat. England is the face, I guess, of it a little
Mhm.
bit. Uh, there are things that you have to do. Poland now has Europe's strongest military. There
Wow.
are compromises that have to be made so that you can set yourself up within your alliance, if you want to call it that, your union.
Mhm.
And we don't really let other countries do that.
Mhm.
We just let Europe do that. We let the United
Mhm.
States do that. They don't want our social policies, I guess we'll call it, in East Africa.
Mhm.
We have to make that compromise
Yeah.
so that we can become good trade partners and help develop places like East Africa.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And like I think the Africa is just the fastest growing population of young people. Like
Oh,
they just have I think Nigeria alone has 200 million people there. So it's a place where you want to have your footprint, but a lot of the things that are being offered are not particularly accepted in different parts of Africa.
and that's compromise we'll have to make with Africa. I
Hmm.
mean, they will come, they will have their social development as they have their social development. We
Mhm.
can't win over a battle for hearts and minds. Repeatedly, we tried to shoot the communism out of Vietnam. You
Yeah.
can't shoot an idea to death.
Yeah.
You can't talk. You can't, VP an idea. You
Yeah.
can't just throw Kamala Harris and money at it. You just
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. I watched a movie once, and they had a person who was part of the Taliban, and they had a person arrested, and the U.S. Army reserves. He asked them. He says, what is it that you guys fight for, and why is it that you guys think you can win? He looked at him. He said, "You see that watch on your hand?" He says, "You have time, but we have time. We're willing to commit to this for 30 years." And
Yeah,
you know that you won't be here for that long. So we know in advance that we're going to defeat you. And you saw what happened with Afghanistan, and that was a debacle of debacles. It looked like everyone just like like there was no order. They were like, "Hey, grab your things and run." And you saw the Taliban rushing in, and they've overtaken that land. 20 years of investment is basically gone down the drain.
they're fighting against. Well, they fought against the Soviets. They fought back the Soviets. They fought us back. Afghanistan is where empires go to die. It's known as the Imperial Graveyard. It's a cool little nickname when you study history. Uh, they're fighting because God told them to.
Exactly.
Now, that is such a unfathomably powerful thing that we're
Mhm.
like, oh, we're fighting because we love our freedom. No, they're fighting because God told them to,
Exactly.
and they'll keep doing it until
Yes.
they don't have to anymore.
Exactly.
You
And
cannot shoot an idea to death.
yeah, it's amazing because like I remember during Vietnam, people said that these people that they were fighting for hundreds of years before you got here, and they'll keep
Yeah,
fighting after you leave. Like it's the cost of you fighting a war halfway around the world. They understand you can't fund that forever. Like at some point,
no,
the enthusiasm goes away, and then your enemies, the people who've been there, they've been sitting down in the environment they never been raised in. They get tired of it at some point, and we're seeing that more and more around the world as the nation has. America once was a booming place where their reach extended all around the world, but slowly you're seeing that being pulled back across the nation, where it's kind of being set at that Russia limit, maybe a little bit in the Middle East, but it's pulled back a lot in terms of influence.
yeah. Influence is now a cultural thing.
Hmm.
Distributing your information. I mean that really is uh, what you want to do. Like I think that Japan could be a very powerful nation. They
Hmm.
have projected culture to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Video games, anime. People love to tour there. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Hmm.
They're a disciplined country.
Hmm.
They have done a really good job of being very culturally powerful in the world.
Hmm.
China has not really caught up to that yet. It's not
Hmm.
in their DNA. They're a
Yeah.
very isolationist country, but
Hmm.
now that they think they're projecting power with their military, with trade,
Yeah.
if they would just kind of turn the key back on communism a little bit
Hmm.
and more toward their humanism, free the individual a little more. China, I think, would do very well, but they're not focused on the individual. They're
Hmm.
focused on the state.
Yeah.
Great places like Japan and the United States and Europe and Russia to an extent, unless they want to fight a war and reveal how fragile their economy is, they do a really good job of unlocking the individual.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah.
And that has I think hurt overall China. It's not just a matter if you're going to be the world superpower. It's not just a matter of controlling things, but it's also providing the liquidity that's needed. And the Chinese have just shown a lack of interest in terms of devaluing their yuan to the point where they're willing to give it out. Like the U.S. Treasury has been a basically liquid. It has basically been gold around the world. They say that if you borrow from us, we will pay you 100% of the time. And that is something that's kept the dollar strong. So as a result, America really produces nothing, but because of the fact that they're willing to pay, they've continued to receive a lot of the economic benefits that maybe they shouldn't have, other nations wouldn't be able to receive as a result of it.
Yeah. So nations financing large projects and happenings in other countries. I mean, we are the world's bank now,
Uh-huh.
and China has shown some ability to do that internally.
Hmm.
They have a massive, massive housing market. I
Hmm.
mean, they have 1 billion people, obviously,
Hmm.
right? They have a
Yeah.
huge housing market.
Yeah.
They but that's all they do
Yeah.
internally. If they just focus on their housing and they distribute, cheap labor and cheap goods to the
Yeah.
rest of the world. And if China is going to really get after it, and if you want to call it that, the world stage, they have to get away from their, Zhang He 1490s era idea of Chinese isolationism.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm not sure if you have followed it at all, but like, say like this channel focuses a lot on economics. And I think one thing that has been interesting, right, is the process of having citizens who are facing more and more economic trouble, and which starts again, like you said, like I think it's all wraps itself into itself, right? So the family is a building block of society, and as the family has broken down, so has also the homelessness has increased, because you have single mothers are basically raising children, and we're at a point right now where we can no longer raise a family for the most part on one household income, unless you're making a crazy amount of money. So what are your thoughts, I guess, on the US situation right now? It's like it's since the 70s, it's been a real drag overall, and it's continued. It looks like it's accelerating right now.
Yeah, so Americans, we lack self-discipline. I mean, if you look at other countries on the rise, they're very
Mhm.
disciplined cultures, and
Yeah.
Japan, China, India,
Hmm.
Korea. Oh my goodness, Korea's tech boom right now, just beyond Samsung. I mean, they're
uh
they're making everything,
Wow.
and it's a very disciplined two-parent household,
Hmm.
rigid structure. Now, we are not Korea, Japan, or China. Okay, we're not a homogenous society. We have a very
Yeah.
large mixture of cultures and ideas and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the idea of American civil liberty, American self-governing, has turned into this no accountability thing, which
Hmm.
that's not the point. So, like you said, I mean, the father has to be in the house. We can't just keep buying luxuries.
Yeah.
You can't just you got to learn to cook dinner at your house. You can't just
Yeah.
keep going out for food.
Yeah.
And if the United States would get back to, I don't want to say get back to, let's move forward to
Yeah.
having strong family units that are
Hmm.
self-correcting
Yeah.
and having some mental toughness and some financial discipline, and we'll be fine. We'll be
Definitely.
fine.